Almost always, the first thing you're going to think about from a code standpoint is going to be the occupancy and the construction type. And they kind of live side by side as issues. It's not that the construction type is always understood, but you're always thinking of the construction type in terms of the occupancy. There's sort of this symbiotic relationship between the two. And the reason we start with the occupancy is because that's the one thing we know, right? We're doing a project for a school or for a theater or for an office building, right? We know what the occupancy type is. It's not that somebody comes to us and says, design me a building and then tell me what it's for, right? They tell you, design me a building for this. So we start with that. And by understanding the occupancy, we now can start to have a pretty good idea of what the construction type opportunities are for us. So if we're doing an occupancy that is with more vulnerable people and we're worried about it, so a hospital, say, or a daycare center or a school, the construction types are going to be more limited or going to be more restrictive of how we use them. So you're pretty unlikely to build a 4 or 5 story hospital out of wood studs, right? It's just not, doesn't make logical sense. They're too combustible. They're not robust enough. They're just not. That's just not how it's gonna go. Like by the time you look at the occupancy and you start going through it, the limitations on the use of a wood stud system is going to be so restrictive. It's going to be not really possible to do it. You're not going to be allowed to really do it. But maybe you could with steel that's been fire protected, but maybe you could even build more with, even bigger and have less restrictions if you did it out of concrete, because it's even more fire robust. It's in terms of safe in a fire. So the construction type for the hospital is going to allow me to make bigger buildings and have more freedoms if I'm going with a safer and safer and safer choice. As I go backwards and make a less safe choice, I'm going to be restricted to a smaller building. I'm going to be restricted to less freedom in terms of the choices I can make in terms of how the exiting works or what kind of wall systems I have and whether I need to have a sprinkler system or not. All of those things are going to, if I have the more robust system, I'm going to have more freedoms. If I have the less robust system from a fire safety standpoint, I'm going to have fewer freedoms. Same thing would be true at the other end. If I'm doing a building that is maybe a farm building that's just like a barn or something, has only occasional use and people in it. It's mostly there for having some tools sitting in, and it's just a little storage building or something. Well, there really isn't much in terms of vulnerableness there. So I don't have that need to be so crazy protective. So I'm going to have a lot more freedom and choice to understand what to build there. And then most of the time we're going to be somewhere in the middle. Like we're not usually building hospitals and we're not usually building barns. So we're somewhere in the middle and we're trying to find the right balance of the occupancy to the construction type. And if I am using a construction type that is safer, well, I'll probably be able to build a bigger building or build more freely. If the construction type is less safe, given a specific occupancy type, I'm probably going to have issues where I have to contain that structure. So you're always dealing with both occupancy and construction type, and that's the kind of the first thing that you're really thinking about. And when I look up the occupancy, it's going to give me the ability to be able to look up the construction type per that occupancy, and that will give me sizes, square footages that I'm allowed to build. It'll give me, distances of egress path. All sorts of issues will show up in that set of documents that tell me how restrictive I'm being, and that's going to tell me whether that construction type is a useful one for this particular project. So by all measures, occupancy and construction type, first thing you're thinking about. The second thing you're thinking about is going to be fire ratings and egress paths. So the egress path is the idea that I'm in a building and that building has a corridor, and that corridor has a stair at one end and a stair at the other end.